Unscripted, unfiltered, unapologetic. Diner stops and real talk. The voice of farmers, not politicians or promise makers. Just honest conversation about agriculture's biggest issues. At the table today. This is The Farmer's Table, an original series from Pivot Bio.
Hi, I'm Andrew McCrea, host of the American Countryside and a farmer in Northwest Missouri. Connecting farmers through conversation is what The Farmer's Table is all about. And today we focus on what it's like to be a young farmer when the price of prime farmland hits eye-popping levels in some corners of farm country. Three young Nebraska farmers join me at the table today. Emanuel of North Bend, Lukas Fricke of Ulysses, and Melisa Konecky of Wahoo. Getting into farming is an expensive prospect. How does our group of young farmers make it work, and how have they seen the farm change over the years? Let's get the conversation started. So my dad came home from high school and the farm bought land for $100 an acre. I came home from high school and we bought land for $1,000 an acre, and now just down the road it's $27,000 an acre. And each time before we thought it was high. So is it really high now, or in 5 years will we say, oh, we should have been in it, $27,000 an acre?
No.
Grandpa, Dad always said land is never penciled out. Whenever they bought it, $100, $5,000, you just make it work. I don't know how true that is now with where we're at with these prices, but in 5 years we're going to say this was cheap? I don't know.
I mean, here's the other question that I'd ask you. How much was corn and soybeans during that time? Like, when is $1,000 an acre? Like, it's not getting any cheaper. And I think we're all young farmers here. Like, hearing 27,000, that's one car. Like, that's a nice pre-owned sedan. And now we're like, that's a per acre amount. I mean, how are we expected to, like, buy that stuff? Yeah. I mean, ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, and like we've looked at the first time farm loans and all that stuff. It's a headache to begin with, but then trying to, pencil that out for land, what it's selling for, is almost impossible. Like, they almost don't even want to pay that, so it's, again, as young or first time land buyers, that's ridiculously hard to.
It's always very funny to me as we hear the older generation say, and this is going to get me in trouble, I want to give it to the next generation. But on the other hand, over here, please pay me $500 an acre cash rent. Like, those things don't add up. And I understand, like, there's economics, there's the hard blood, sweat, and tears you went in, you want some return on your investment. But at the same point, I kind of like look at, like, my dad's generation, when he was coming around, people were more likely to give, like, a chance to those people and, like, getting started. But now, like, I want the most for my ground. I mean, we're only going to get more conglomerated. The next generation is going to have to go off farm and find some new kind of money. I mean, it's kind of a catch-22. Now, I'm happy for the seller. I mean, that's $27,000 an acre. That's a nice day. But how are we going to, the younger generation?
Well, in that same vein, being young, how are you supposed to keep up with land prices, equipment prices? We can't afford used equipment right now. And then your interest rates.
Oh.
Put all those together, how are you supposed to cash flow that? If you're 50 and under, unless you're coming back to a multi-generational farm with all these acres paid off, you can't. That line is very, very fine right now between making payments and going broke.
So we just were talking about this because my dad just started farming right before the 80s. So he's like, that was the worst. We talked a lot about it, but he said kind of one of the things that he says the 80s will not happen again is what he's pretty sure, because he said they didn't also have crop insurance at the time.
Well, right, safety nets.
So there was none of that. So I can't even imagine doing what we're doing now and not having any safety nets. Like, that's scary, but it's scary enough with them. So
who's buying the land then? If everybody is in a sense in the same boat, somebody's willing to pay $27,000 an acre. So what are you all seeing? Are they people that don't live here? Is it outside money? Who's buying the land?
I think just in the land sales we've been to lately, there is a handful of investors I've seen Colorado, I've seen, across the coast within Nebraska, people looking to spend some money, and they've got, family, or they know somebody, they've already have that connection made. They know who's going to farm it. They just, they need to have somewhere to put some cash. So that's what we're seeing. What I've seen the highest stuff going for is investors from other places. So
in our area, it's a lot of, all right, great-great-grandpa had ground, and they just kept building off of that, and as that momentum kept going, and if the 80s weren't terrible to them, they're now in a very good position, if they're able to buy ground in the 80s, to just keep that, again, snowball going. And now they're in a position where they can afford to buy that because they have ground that's paid off, so they put this new ground just into the equation of, okay, that's just an expense we're dealing with now.
Do you all think that, not all ground goes for $27,000 an acre, right?
Yeah.
But it's still higher than we thought. So if you all go to your lender, will they give you the money to do it right now?
Not for $27,000 an acre.
Well, no, but for whatever it's
Yeah.
At what will they give you? Let's say we'll put reasonably priced. Can you get a loan right now to do it?
We, as young producers, you hope that's a one-off, like you said. But even just say it's $15,000 an acre. Being young, you got to have collateral, or you hope that you have relation that will sign off for you.
Or you're trying to find other farm ground to rent
Right.
to help offset that too. I looked at it back when ground was like $6,000 an acre, and I had to go and find another 80 to rent. And they're like, "Well, can't you rent from your family?" Well, no, we're already using that to, it's hard to find those situations because it gets locked down. And maybe that's the area we're in, but it's not that easy just to go and buy it quick.
Well, and I think just like going to the bank, the paperwork has gotten so much more complicated. Like, I laugh because my dad is still of the old school mentality. Like, we've banked here forever. Like, we're going to be buddies with the bankers so they give us a loan. And I'm like constantly like, no, like it doesn't work like that anymore. Like, they need numbers, they need cash flow, they need to see what your books look like. It's not just, yeah, I've known you, I'll give you a loan. Like, I feel like we beat that dead horse all the time. Yeah. But it's just different. And they want to see it black and white.
There's no way, being our age, unless you have a good chunk of collateral behind you already, that you can just go to an auction and think you're going to buy it that day. We have to have our numbers in line. You have to go there. Your lender needs to know for sure that you're going there to bid on it. Anymore, it's almost got to be a private deal.
And I think the sad part too is that you see that ground keep changing hands,
Right.
and you lose that relationship with the people too. Because that's like back in our parents' early days, like you had that relationship with your landowner because they were your friend in high school, and they went off to work in the city, and they still have that, they see them at alumni day.
They
or
wanted
whatever.
somebody that they knew to be farming it, and now they don't care.
They just see that money coming in, and they're like, well, they have no connection to it. Let's just sell it because they're told that ground is at an all-time high, so they don't care.
It's a number on a paper. It's not the heritage of the ground.
Correct.
Farmers have always taken care of what they value. They cultivated bountiful land and fed a nation hungry for progress. As Americans dialed up, precision on the farm led to yields once thought impossible. But when it came to nitrogen, it wasn't precise or predictable enough. Farmers deserve a nitrogen worthy of who they are and what their land can provide. And now there is one.
You mentioned something earlier about the 80s, and yeah, some things are similar and some things aren't. But how do you be progressive and conservative at the same time? I think about that a lot because I want to keep growing, but I lived part of the 80s. I mean, I remember that. So what do you all do? How do you be progressive and conservative at the same time?
I think that's what everybody's trying to figure out.
Well, give me the answer.
I know.
Well, I mean, we haven't had enough coffee to even figure that out yet. But honestly, I think, and this is where I'm going to get on a soapbox, there's a lot of opportunity for farms to diversify themselves with attributes they're already doing. Okay, that sounds very fancy for like carbon credits and sustainability stuff and the things we're already doing. I feel that as an opportunity for us to get paid for what we're already doing and add another attribute to our thing of grain, our dairy, our pork, whatever it may be, to say, hey, we're doing a good job, we're helping out the environment, someone else wants that attribute. I think that's one way of being progressive, being a little bit innovative with what's already here.
Farmers are having to transition from more of the intense physical labor to being better paper pushers, which is you got to fill the stuff out right, be tracking everything that you're doing so that you can prove that 99% of farmers are absolutely great. We're doing the right stuff, we're helping the environment, we're doing more with less every year. And as technology keeps advancing, we're doing even a better job. And so if you can, like you said with the carbon credits and stuff, if you can prove all of this, there is some, I think, opportunity out there. I think we're slowly, at least our generation, is getting better at telling our story,
Yeah.
because we're realizing that consumers want to know where the food's from.
Yeah.
And I think by telling our story through the carbon stuff, it's only going to get better, because we're a part of the solution here. They want to try to blame some of the carbon on the big feedlots, the tractors out in the field, all of this stuff.
But they don't want to stop driving their car.
Right.
I'd challenge you. I don't think it's telling. I think it's selling. I think we're finally like getting good at, we got a product that we can sell, and it's us and what we're
Correct. That's so I was just going to say,
Yeah,
like
that's
one of
what
the
you're
things
doing.
that we've really looked at, which my dad, he grew up in the 80s. The 80s made him super gun shy of everything, of spending a lot of money, because he's always waiting for that to come back. So, me and my brother came back and we're looking at it like, what are we already doing that we're not making money in? Or what is something that's now what people are looking for? So part of us is farm tours. My grandma did those for free for years. People will pay to come to bring their school kids, and we do a tour of the farm, and we do make butter, and like, that's a great avenue for us to be able to make some income. We're doing, direct dairy sales as a way to kind of move our own product. So I think looking for those things that you're already, like you said with the carbon credits, if you're, corn and soybeans, what are you already doing that maybe some of those generations didn't think about making money on?
Farmers are always going to be optimistic about the future. It's just in our blood. I don't know. You don't want to.
There's always that fear, though, and the pride, right?
Right.
The fear and the pride that I don't want to be the one to screw this up.
Yep.
That holds you back from, let's bet the whole farm. Because nowadays, that's what it is. I mean, if you're buying $27,000 an acre, you're betting a lot. So,
Highly leveraged. I don't
Right.
know. I hope to God that it's going to work. I mean, there's going to be pieces that come up around us where we're like, hey, this once in a lifetime deal. It hasn't changed in the last 115 years. The same family's owned it. It's right next to the fence line. Do we try it? We've always, those are those kind of situations, but
And that's part of the problem too, is that
there is
your
hubris to it, right?
Your dad has said that, your grandpa said it, it's in every operation. Well, when this piece of ground comes up, it's only going to come up once in your lifetime.
Yep.
So that's always in the back of your mind, but again, where's that line at? Where are you going to overstep where all of a sudden you're in trouble? What are you doing to try to make it make sense? That's the question.
and what are you doing that doesn't make sense? I think that's a question we've had to add.
That is a
ask
very hard
ourselves,
question.
What is this not working? Do we let it go?
And farmers are terrible at letting stuff go,
No.
especially if dad did it.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's always been done this way, which is my least favorite phrase
Ugh.
in the entire world. I hate it so much.
Yep. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. That's what kills most of the farms. It's what Grandpa and Dad and Grandma did.
Yeah, we've done a lot since I've been there. I'm like, why are we still doing, like you talked about manual labor, like let's work smarter, not harder, because we're only getting older.
Yeah, exactly.
We're young now, but in 10
Not going to be
years.
that way forever.
What can we start automating, or even in some cases it does make sense on paper to just hire a certain thing out
Right.
instead of you doing it, just because
Right.
grandpa did it, dad did it, and he says you have to do it now.
Well, and I think the hardest thing to think about, as you said, is our sweat equity. We never put value on what we do. Like, if you counted the hours
Yeah.
for what you get paid, like, it's a
Gross.
lot.
Yeah.
Right. You sometimes don't want to think about it.
With these young farmers at the helm, the future of farming is in good hands. We want to thank Jordan, Lukas, and Melisa for sharing their fresh perspective on a business we all love. We'll see you next time on The Farmer's Table.